They will never tell you. But every room you enter is a game of power. It hides in eye contact, in silence, in who speaks first and who walks away last. Power doesn't always wear a crown. It wears patience. It wears fear dressed as loyalty, charm laced with strategy, kindness sharpened by control. Whether you seek it or not, you're already inside the game. Every alliance, every glance, every decision, they carry weight. So the question isn't, do you want power? The question is, will you understand it, for it understands you? These are not rules for saints. These are truths pulled from history's quiet corridors, from courts and prisons, palaces and boardrooms, where words were weapons and silence thrown. This is not a call to domination. It's a call to awareness. Because in a world where power shapes reality, those who see the game live free inside it. Power is a quiet current. It doesn't always roar. It doesn't need to. Most of the time, it moves in silence through glances, pauses, the weight of presence. And in that silence, one truth echoes again and again. Never outshine the master. To shine is not a sign. But in the presence of power, too much light becomes a threat. In every hierarchy, whether in the palace, the boardroom, or the everyday world, there is someone above you. A leader, a mentor, a gatekeeper. Their sense of identity is built not only on their role, but on being seen as the brightest one in the room. If your brilliance begins to cast a shadow over theirs, you don't just impress them, you provoke their insecurity. History gives us a perfect example. Nicolas Fouquet, the finance minister of France. He wanted to gain the favor of King Louis XIV, so he threw a magnificent celebration art, poetry, wine, gold. He showcased his intellect, his taste, his influence. Instead of admiration, it bred resentment. The king felt eclipsed. Within days, Fouquet was arrested, exiled, erased, not for corruption, but for being too dazzling. Because power, when threatened, doesn't always confront you. It withdraws, it isolates, and eventually, it eliminates. The game of power isn't played in truth. It's played in perception. You may be more skilled, more creative, more capable, but if your presence makes the master feel replaceable, your time is already ticking. This law is not about shrinking yourself. It's about knowing when to reveal and when to hold. Let your light be gentle. Let it leak, not explode. Make your master feel like your strength is part of his legacy. Let him take credit for your ideas. Let him feel admired even when you outgrow him, because power that feels safe will protect you. Power that feels threatened will destroy you. Beneath every title, every throne, every crown, is ego. And ego, once wounded, seeks vengeance, not justice. Even praise can sound like mockery if it reminds them of their fading glory. So you must play the deeper game, one of patience, subtlety, and timing. Your humility becomes your shield. Your silence becomes your strategy. Rise slowly. Let them believe they are lifting you. Let them see their own greatness reflected in your growth. That way, when your moment arrives, it doesn't feel like rebellion. It feels inevitable. And when that happens, you will not need to take the throne. It will be handed to you. Because in the end, power doesn't belong to the loudest. It belongs to the one who understands rhythm, who waits, watches, adapts. The sun doesn't fight the moon. It waits for the right time to rise. So be patient, be precise. And above all, never outshine the master. We are taught to trust our friends, to believe that loyalty is stronger than logic, that shared memories, kindness, and warmth will protect us from betrayal. But power doesn't operate in that world. Power lives in a colder place, where intention is masked and closeness can become a weapon. The truth is harsh. Friends are more likely to betray not because they hate you, but because they feel entitled. Entitled to your success, to your time, to your loyalty. And when they feel you've taken more than you've given, they may not say it, but they will show it. Familiarity breeds expectation. Expectation breeds resentment. And resentment, when mixed with jealousy, is dangerous. Friends will forgive your flaws. But sometimes, they won't forgive your rise. They remember who you were. And they quietly resist who you're becoming. Enemies are different. They expect nothing. They watch you, study you, and underestimate you. But they also give you something friends rarely do: clarity. With enemies, the lines are clean. There's no pretending. No hidden disappointment, only strategy, tension, and growth. History shows that some of the greatest alliances were born from former rivalries. Because enemies have something to prove, they work harder. They don't rely on comfort. They value opportunity more than approval. If they join your side, they do so not out of sentiment, but strength. This law doesn't tell you to be cold, it tells you to be awake. To see loyalty not as a default, but as a currency earned, not assumed. Don't drown in the idea that trust must come from history. Sometimes it comes from opposition. Sometimes your true allies were once your loudest critics. So when you rise, don't just look beside you. Look behind you. Look across the room. Power doesn't care where loyalty begins. It only asks, who is willing to move forward without envy? In the end, it's not about avoiding betrayal. It's about recognizing where it often hides. It's not in the glare of hatred, but in the soft smile of a friend who stayed too close, too long. So be kind, but alert. Forgive, but don't forget. And when the time comes, do not fear your enemies. Fear the ones who believe they deserve your throne. Clarity is comforting. We want others to know our plans. We want to be understood. But in the game of power, visibility is vulnerability. The more you reveal, the more you give away. And once your path becomes obvious, so does the way to block it. Intentions are like maps. Show them too early, and you invite resistance, interference, and sabotage. People are not always against your success, but they're often afraid of being left behind. And when they sense your goal, some will try to delay it, reshape it, or quietly undermine it. This is why the masters of power kings, spies, strategists learn to speak with masks. They misdirect, they distract, they say one thing and do another, not out of malice, but because truth, when spoken too soon, loses its strength. Concealing your intentions doesn't mean living dishonestly. It means choosing the right moment to be known. When your vision is still fragile, keep it guarded. Don't let it be exposed to fear, envy, or noise. Let people see movement but not the direction. Let them feel momentum but never predict your destination. People are uncomfortable with silence. They fill it with assumptions. Let them. When you reveal nothing, they create their own stories. And often, those stories protect you. Because what is hidden cannot be attacked directly. What is misunderstood cannot be stopped easily. Think of the fox that moves through tall grass. It doesn't announce where it's going. It lets the rustle confuse the hunter. It disappears in plain sight. Not because it's fast, but because it knows how to stay unseen. That is power. Not speed, but invisibility. So when you act, act with calm. When you speak, speak with purpose. But let your true motives remain behind the curtain. Let success arrive before explanation. Because once the arrow is in the air, it's too late to stop it. And when the world finally sees your path, let it be because you've already arrived at the end of it. Words are powerful, but the more we use them, the more they begin to lose their weight. In the realm of power, silence is not emptiness, it is a weapon. To speak less is to appear stronger. To leave space is to leave others guessing. And uncertainty is control. When you speak too much, you expose your thoughts. You reveal your fears, your desires, your limits. You give others tools to read you, to influence you, to disarm you. But when you say little, you hold the frame. You force others to listen harder, lean in closer, wonder what you're thinking, and fill in the gaps with their own imagination. The more someone talks, the more ordinary they become. The more silence you keep, the more others project meaning onto your words. It's not about being mysterious for the sake of drama. It's about intention, precision, knowing that the right word at the right moment is louder than 1,000 explanations spoken in panic. History is filled with leaders who understood this. They sat in silence while others debated. They watched as opponents drowned in their own arguments. And when they finally spoke, they didn't need many words. Because by then, the room had already surrendered to the weight of their presence. We live in a world obsessed with noise, updates, opinions, reactions. But power flows differently. It flows through pauses, stillness, restraint. Because people fear what they can't predict. They fear quiet minds. They fear those who don't need to prove themselves through speech. Speaking less also gives you space to think, to listen, to observe not only what's being said, but what's being hidden. In silence, you catch hesitation. You notice contradictions. You begin to see not just the words, but the motives beneath them. So next time you're in the room, try saying a little less. Let others explain. Let them unravel. And when the silence becomes too loud to bear, say something simple, something sharp, then stop. Because the person who needs fewer words usually has more power than the one who can't stop speaking. In the eyes of the world, you are not just your actions, you are the story people tell about you. And that story, true or not, is your reputation. It follows you into every room. It speaks before you do. And once it's damaged, even silence can't fix it. Reputation is more than just an image. It's your first line of defense. It determines whether you're trusted or doubted, respected or dismissed. People rarely see the full you, but they always respond to the idea of you. And that idea is shaped not by your intentions, but by perception. You may work hard, you may stay honest, but all it takes is one rumor, one misstep, one carefully planted seed of doubt, and everything you've built begins to crack. In the world of power, this isn't paranoia, it's preparation. That's why those who understand power treat reputation like armor. They defend it in silence. They shape it through consistency. And when attacked, they don't panic. They strike with precision, not to argue, but to reassert control. Building reputation takes time, but losing it, that can happen in a single moment. So be careful who you trust with your name. Be mindful of the patterns you repeat. Every gesture, every word, every public move, it all adds up to something others can use, protect, or destroy. And when your reputation is strong, it begins to protect you on its own. It speaks in rooms where you are absent. It earns you the benefit of the doubt. It warns others not to cross you. Because even your enemies, before they act, will ask themselves what it will cost. So build your name like a fortress. Don't overexpose. Don't over-explain. Stay consistent. Stay sharp. Because in a world that moves on assumptions, your reputation is not a detail. It's everything. Power is drawn to visibility. In a world full of noise, silence becomes erasure. People forget what they can't see. And in forgetting you, they erase your influence. Piece by piece. To court attention is not vanity. It's survival. The powerful don't wait to be noticed. They step into the light, not always with noise, but with presence, with clarity, with something that cuts through the fog. Obscurity is death in the realm of power. You can be brilliant but invisible, talented but ignored. If you don't command attention, you give the world permission to overlook you. And once you become forgettable, you are no longer a player in the game. You're just part of the background. Those who rise understand this instinctively. They shape their image. They tell their own story before someone else writes it for them. They provoke curiosity, controversy, admiration, whatever keeps the spotlight near. Because even negative attention, when used strategically, is better than being invisible. The hated still hold power. The forgotten hold nothing. But this law comes with risk. You must not chase attention blindly. You must earn it with intention. Too much noise, and you become desperate. Too little, and you fade. There's an art to knowing when to speak, when to appear, and how to leave just enough mystery behind. Look at the icons of history. They crafted symbols. They chose words carefully. They dressed with purpose. They didn't just live. They performed. Not to lie, but to last. So court attention, not for applause, not for ego, but because power needs an audience. And without attention, you vanish. In the game of influence, it's better to be seen as bold than not to be seen at all. Power is not always built by effort. Sometimes it's built by direction. The most powerful figures in history weren't the ones doing all the work. They were the ones pulling the strings, guiding talent, shaping outcomes. And standing at the center when the lights came on, there is no shame in using the strength of others. No empire is built by one man's hands. The illusion of singular genius is just that, an illusion. Behind every great name are countless invisible hands. The difference is, those with true power know how to gather talent and turn it into a mirror that reflects their own image. Let others dig, write, plan, build. Let them think they are leading. But always stay close enough to steer. Direct the current even if you don't stir the water yourself. Because in the end, the credit belongs not to those who labor, but to those who orchestrate. This law is not about theft. It's about positioning. You don't take what isn't yours. You simply guide the perception. You make your presence essential, so the final result, no matter who contributes, always bears your signature. Great leaders delegate, but they never disappear. They know when to step back and when to step forward with confidence. The work may come from 100 different minds, but the world only remembers one name. To master this law, you must study people. See who holds the skill, who needs recognition, who craves approval. Give them just enough. Let them shine briefly, but only in ways that lead back to your light. So use the talents of others, but stand at the front when the curtain falls. Own the vision, shape the narrative, because in power, history doesn't ask who did the work. It only remembers who stood in the center when the story was told. In power, movement is not always progress. Sometimes, the more you chase, the more you surrender. When you move toward someone, you show desire. You show need, and in that moment you give away your position. The powerful do not chase. They attract. They remain still, anchored, calm, deliberate. While others circle around them, drawn by gravity they don't fully understand. To make others come to you is to flip the balance. It's no longer you adjusting to the world, but the world adjusting to you. The moment you pursue, you reveal your intent. You show your hand. You expose your rhythm. But when you wait, when you hold your center, you force others to question, to wonder, to reach. Stillness, when done right, becomes a kind of bait. But bait is not just temptation, it's strategy. It's silence that invites action. It's absence that creates urgency. Sometimes the best move is to leave a door slightly open and let their curiosity do the rest. You don't need to force their hand, just guide it. A pause in your reply, subtle offer, not a demand. A withdrawal of presence, just long enough to make them feel the loss. Because when people come to you willingly, they bring more than action. They bring investment. This law isn't about arrogance. It's about gravity. It's about becoming the center of motion rather than the one reacting to it. To pull others in, you must become still and compelling enough that movement toward you feels like their idea. So stay rooted, build your ground strong. Let them approach. Let them ask. Let them want. Because once they've taken the first step, you've already won the deeper game. Without lifting a finger, words are seductive. They promise clarity. They give us the illusion of control, that if we just explain it well enough, people will understand. They will agree. They will change. But power doesn't work that way. Arguments rarely change minds. They create resistance, not resolution. Because when you argue, you threaten the ego of the other person. You corner them. And no one wants to lose face, especially in public. Even when you win the debate, you often lose something more important: their trust, or their silence. True influence doesn't come from convincing. It comes from doing, from results, from presence. From a move so undeniable, it silences every objection without a single word. Powerful people act. And in acting, they prove more than arguments ever could. You don't need to say you're right, just be right. Let your results speak, let your success echo. Let your silence become louder than their opinions. Because the moment you engage in a battle of words, you step into a terrain where emotion clouds logic and pride blinds truth. Sometimes the strongest reply is none at all, just movement, just progress, decision made quietly. A result delivered without announcement. While others speak, you act. And while they are still explaining, you've already moved on. This law is not about avoidance, it's about clarity. Knowing that real change, real persuasion, happens not through volume, but through vision, through the evidence of consistency, through the silence that cannot be argued with. When the time comes, and you feel the urge to defend, to explain, to fight with words, pause and remember. Power doesn't argue. It builds. It moves. And in the end, the quietest person in the room is often the one already winning. Energy is contagious, even when we don't see it. It lingers in conversation, in silence, in the weight someone carries into the room. And if we're not careful, we absorb it, we mirror it. We become infected by the emotions of others. Without ever noticing, we've changed. There are people who drain you, not because they want to, but because they are lost in their own misfortune. They walk with storms overhead. They speak in tones of defeat. They carry a subtle darkness, the heaviness of unresolved anger, unprocessed regret and pain they refuse to release. You may try to help. You may feel noble offering your light. But light cannot survive where it's constantly dimmed. If their world is built on collapse, they will subconsciously pull you down to match it. Not out of cruelty, but out of need, because misery craves company even when it smiles. Avoiding the unhappy doesn't mean lacking compassion. It means protecting your own clarity, your focus, your future. Some people need healing, but some refuse to be healed. And if you stay too long, you won't lift them up. You'll sink with them. Power demands elevation, a clear mind, a stable heart. You cannot build when you're constantly patching emotional holes. You cannot lead when your energy is stolen by drama that isn't yours. Choose your proximity carefully, because who you surround yourself with is who you slowly become. Instead, seek those who move with resilience. Those who've suffered but stayed open. Those who fail but keep trying without bitterness. Their energy doesn't infect. It inspires. It sharpens you. It lifts you without demand. And that kind of influence is rare and worth everything. So when you feel the pull of someone drowning in their own misfortune, offer kindness. But from a distance. Offer light, but protect your flame. Good. Because in the end, your time, your focus, your energy are not things you can afford to give away lightly. In the wrong company over time will cost you more than you ever expected. Power fades when people no longer need you. The moment they can move without you, you lose your grip. That's why true power lies not just in what you control, but in what others can't do without you. To lead, to influence, to endure, you must become essential. Not in a loud way, but quietly, strategically. You give just enough so that your absence feels like risk. They may not say it, but deep down, they know. Their success depends on your presence. The most skilled rulers don't rule with force. They create need. They embed themselves in systems, in habits, in outcomes, until removing them feels like tearing out the core. Dependence is a softer chain, but it holds tighter than fear. This doesn't mean manipulation. It means becoming valuable. It means knowing when to give and when to hold back. Not all your knowledge, not all your strength, just enough to make them reach for you when it matters. Because if people can replace you, they will. If they can outgrow you, they might. But if your presence makes things smoother, smarter, safer, they'll keep you close. So build yourself into what they rely on. Let your value become invisible, but constant. Until needing you feels natural, and losing you feels like collapse. Deception doesn't always begin with a lie. Sometimes it starts with the truth. Just one carefully chosen truth, offered at the right time, can open doors that even force cannot unlock. People trust what feels sincere, and nothing disarms suspicion faster than a moment of unexpected honesty, a confession, a gift, a gesture that seems to ask for nothing in return. But beneath that gesture, a quiet strategy unfolds. Honesty, when used selectively, becomes a weapon of influence. It lowers defenses. It makes others feel safe, as if they've glimpsed the real you. But in truth, you've only shown what you wanted them to see. The same goes for generosity. Give them something small, symbolic, a favor, a moment of vulnerability, and they will feel bound, grateful, even loyal, not realizing. It's their attention you've bought, their guard you've lowered. This isn't cruelty, it's control. You choose your moments. You lead with softness, not because you're weak, but because softness invites trust. Once trust is established, you can move freely. You can ask more. You can go deeper, because people protect what they feel connected to. And no connection forms faster than one built through the illusion of openness. So be generous when it serves your aim. Be honest when it sharpens your advantage. Because sometimes what brings people closest to you is the very thing that gives you power over them. People are moved by their own desires, not by your struggles. Mercy is unpredictable, but self-interest, that's reliable, measurable, and persuasive. When you ask for help, don't rely on guilt. Don't hope they care enough. Instead, show them what they gain. Make your request feel like an opportunity, not a burden. Turn your need into a mirror. That reflects their ambition. No one wants to feel used, but everyone wants to feel smart, useful, powerful. So when you frame your ask, tie it to their goals, their image, their future. This isn't manipulation, it's alignment. You align your needs with their hunger, their pride. In doing so, you create a yes that feels like their idea. Even kindness can grow from self-interest. A favor today becomes leverage tomorrow. So give them a reason that benefits them, and they'll walk beside you willingly. Not out of sympathy, but strategy. Because mercy fades, and emotions change. But self-interest, that endures. It sharpens focus. It secures support. And it reminds you that power rarely moves without a reason. Information is power, but the most dangerous part of it is how quietly it moves. You don't need armies to win influence. Sometimes all you need is to listen, when no one expects you to. People reveal more to friends than to enemies. They speak freely in comfort, unguarded, relaxed. That's when truth slips out, not because it's forced, but because it's invited. So, wear the smile. Offer your presence. Blend into their circle, not to hurt them, but to understand them. To map their habits, hear their doubts, see their weaknesses. Don't ask directly. Let curiosity hide behind empathy. Let your silence be the question, because the less you push, the more they reveal. And the information you gather, their fears, their desires, their patterns, becomes the blueprint. A quiet advantage you can use when the moment comes. This law isn't about betrayal. It's about preparation. To move wisely, you must see clearly. And sometimes that clarity comes from standing beside someone while thinking several steps ahead. So be the friend, be the echo. But always listen deeper than they think you are. Because what people give away freely is often the very thing they assumed you'd never notice. Mercy feels noble. But in power, half measures leave cracks. If your enemy survives, even in silence, they remember, they rebuild, and eventually they return. A wounded enemy is more dangerous than a defeated one, because pain breeds obsession, and silence hides strategy. They will wait, watch, and when you're distracted, they'll strike where it hurts. That's why the wise don't just win, they erase the threat. They leave nothing behind. No seeds of vengeance, no room for revival. Not out of cruelty, but clarity. Total victory is not about violence, it's about finality. Removing the root, not just cutting the branches. Because even one surviving whisper can echo into resistance. Sometimes kindness keeps danger alive. Sometimes the desire to appear fair opens the door for betrayal. And in the world of power, regret is often more painful than ruthlessness. So when the moment comes, end it completely. Close the chapter with no pages left to turn. Because enemies don't forget mercy, they exploit it. Presence creates comfort. But too much presence breeds routine, and what becomes routine soon becomes invisible. The more you're always there, the less people feel the weight of your being. They begin to expect you, then overlook you. Power loses its edge when it becomes familiar. That's why absence is not a weakness. It's a tool. Disappearance is not surrender. It's strategy. By stepping back, you create space. And in that space, perception expands. The moment you are no longer easily available, your value begins to rise. People remember what they miss. They imagine what isn't there. And in that imagination, you become larger, sharper, more significant than before. Don't fear distance. Use it. Step away from the noise. Let them feel the silence. Let them wonder, because absence creates longing. And longing shapes power. When you return, if you return, do it with timing. Do it with purpose. Let the reappearance feel like an event, not an obligation. In that moment, you reclaim your presence, not as background, but as gravity. True influence isn't about always being seen. It's about being remembered when you're not there. So use absence wisely. Not to disappear, but to deepen your imprint. In the minds of those who once took you for granted, predictability gives people comfort, and comfort gives them control. The moment they know what you'll do next, they begin to plan around you, to manipulate you, to weaken you, without ever lifting a hand. But when you move without pattern, when your actions break rhythm, you become dangerous. Uncertainty makes people hesitate, and hesitation is where power enters. Unpredictability is not chaos. It's precision. It's choosing not to be readable, not to be obvious. You shift direction just when they think they understand. You speak less when they expect more. You strike softly when they prepare for force. That tension, the not knowing, it keeps others cautious. It makes them reactive, while you remain fluid. You turn their expectations against them, and their fear becomes your armor. To be feared, you don't need rage. You need surprise. A calm that hides movement. A move that no one saw coming. And once they believe they can't predict you, they stop trying to control you. So don't follow the script they write for you. Burn it. Invent your own rhythm, your own tempo. And when the world leans in, waiting for your next step, let the silence speak louder than the plan. It feels safe to withdraw. To build walls, surround yourself with silence and call it peace. But power dies in isolation. Because what you can't see, you can't control. When you retreat too far, you lose sight of movement. You lose the pulse of change. And without connection, you become blind to shifts in loyalty, in danger, in truth. A fortress gives the illusion of protection, but it invites siege. It signals fear. It separates you from reality. You stop hearing what people say in whispers. You stop sensing the storm before it comes. The powerful stay engaged, not exposed, but present. They walk among people, observe the small shifts, read the room before anyone speaks. Because clarity lives in proximity. Be close enough to sense tension, far enough to remain above it. But never lock yourself away. Not in solitude, not in comfort. Because the walls you build today may become your prison tomorrow. So stay open, stay aware. And remember, the higher you rise, the more dangerous it becomes to go blind. Not all enemies are the same. Some explode and vanish. Some stay silent for years. Watching, waiting, remembering. In power, the danger isn't always the blow. It's the person you thought wouldn't strike back. Every ego has a different threshold. Some can laugh it off, some pretend to forgive. But others, they carry insult like a seed. And given time, it grows into something darker. Before you act, study the terrain. Before you speak, measure the weight of your words. Because one careless move against the wrong soul can turn a minor slight into a lifelong vendetta. Power is not about swinging at every threat. It's about knowing who you're swinging at. Some people crumble when challenged, others multiply. Some enemies you don't make twice. So be precise. Be aware. Every person is a landscape. And some are full of traps you'll never see until it's already too late. Attachment is control in disguise. The moment you fully commit, you place your fate in someone else's hands. Their battles become yours. Their failures stain your name. And without realizing it, you're pulled into a war that was never yours to begin with. Power needs room to move. It needs options. When you stand in the middle, unclaimed, untied, everyone wants you on their side. They offer more. They reveal more because they're uncertain where your loyalty lies. But the moment you choose, you limit yourself. You inherit enemies you didn't earn. You lose the advantage of mystery, of leverage. Stay neutral. Not out of indecision, but design. Let them think they can have you. Let them try. Because when people compete for your allegiance, you control the game. To commit is to narrow your path. But to remain unattached is to remain unpredictable, untouchable, and dangerously free. Nothing threatens the proud more than the idea that someone might be smarter. So they protect their ego. They close off. They resist. But show them a fool, and they let their guard down. Pretend not to see. Act confused. Let them underestimate you, because when someone believes they're smarter, they relax. They reveal more. They speak freely, never realizing they're building your advantage. Fools rush to show what they know, but the wise, they hide their sharpest thoughts behind silence and a tilted smile. Play dumb strategically, not forever, just long enough to see who you're really dealing with. In deception, weakness is a mask. It's bait. Let them think they're winning. Let them explain things to you like you're a child. Because in that moment, you're already ahead. You don't need to prove you're smart. You need to win. And sometimes, the smartest move is to make them think you aren't even playing. Sometimes the smartest move is to take a step back. Not because you've lost, but because you see further. To fight every battle is to exhaust yourself. To surrender when done right is not weakness, it's strategy. When you yield, you confuse the enemy. You disarm their aggression. You give them the illusion of victory. And in their overconfidence, they make mistakes. They reveal intentions. They stop guarding themselves. Surrender creates space. Time. A pause in the war where you can rebuild silently. While they celebrate, you prepare. And when the moment is right, you return not from emotion, but from position. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it kneels. It bows its head, not in defeat, but in calculation. And in doing so, it outlasts the storm. Don't mistake surrender for giving up. It's stepping out of the fire to wait for the wind to shift. Because he who knows when to yield is often the one who controls when the war ends. Energy is limited, so is time. Power doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing one thing with relentless focus. Scattering yourself makes you visible everywhere and effective nowhere. But when you gather your strength, your attention, your resources into one direction, you become a force nothing can ignore. Most people spread themselves thin. They chase every opportunity, say yes to every call. And in the end, they achieve very little very slowly. The powerful know better. They concentrate. They choose one path, cut out the noise, and pour everything they have into it. And when that path opens, they surge through with full momentum. You don't need more chances. You need sharper aim, so draw in your energy. Build it like pressure behind glass. Then, when the moment arrives, release it with precision. Because in a world full of scattered minds, the one who moves with focused force will always cut the deepest. Power doesn't always live on the throne. Sometimes it stands just behind it, smiling, listening, moving carefully through the room. This is the courtier, not a ruler, but one who survives every ruler. In the halls of power, bluntness is dangerous. Ego is fatal, but grace, timing, and subtlety, those are weapons. A perfect courtier never speaks too much, never shows too little. They praise without flattery. They criticize without offense. They read the room like a map. Every glance, every silence, every shift in tone means something. And they respond not with force, but with rhythm. They bend without breaking. To rise in power, you must know how to play it. Not as a warrior, but as a dancer. Never outshine, but never disappear. Never cling, but never drift too far. Charm becomes armor. Restraint becomes strategy. And by mastering the art of presence, you influence without needing a crown. In the game of power, those who understand court behavior often live longer than kings. You were born once. But that doesn't mean you must stay the same. The powerful don't accept their shape as final. They shape themselves, again and again, like an artist refining a sculpture. Your identity is not a prison, it's a palette. You choose what to reveal, what to hide, what to become. And each version of you can serve a different moment, a different purpose. Don't wait to be defined by others. Define yourself first. If you let the world write your story, you'll always be reacting. But when you take the pen, you dictate the rhythm. You become the author of perception. Transformation isn't about lying, it's about evolution. It's seeing who you need to become and moving toward it deliberately with control. The self is fluid. It can be elevated, sharpened, strategically adjusted. And those who master this, who wear masks without losing their core, move through every room with power and precision. You don't have to be who you were. You don't even have to be who you are. You only have to be what the moment demands. Power often gets dirty, but your image must stay spotless. The world forgives strategy, but it rarely forgives a stain. You can make moves behind the curtain, as long as your hands stay untouched by consequence. Let others do the work. You don't want to trace back to you. Let their fingerprints mark the action, while you appear calm, noble, above the chaos. This isn't cowardice, it's clarity. If blame must fall, have a buffer. Someone willing, someone useful. A tool, not a target. Someone to absorb the blow. While your reputation remains intact, never let the blood be on your skin, even if the plan was yours, because perception shapes legacy. And history rarely asks who whispered the order, only who stood in the open when the damage was done. Keep your hands clean, not because you are innocent, but because innocence is one of power's most effective disguises. People are not driven by logic alone, they are driven by longing, by the deep need to believe in something, someone greater than themselves. Give them that. Offer clarity in a world of noise, confidence in a sea of doubt. Wrap your message in meaning, your presence in mystery. Make them feel chosen, seen, special. Don't just lead with strategy. Lead with story. A narrative that explains the world. Their place in it, and your place above it. Speak not just to the mind, but to the heart. To their fears, their hopes, their loneliness, and they will follow, not out of reason, but devotion. A crowd that believes will defend you blindly. They will justify your flaws, echo your words, and protect your power as if it were their own. So build the illusion, then let them breathe life into it. Because once they believe, you don't need to control them. They will control each other. Hesitation is loud. It reveals doubt before you speak. And in the realm of power, doubt is blood in the water. Whatever you do, step into it with boldness, not because you are certain, but because you refuse to appear small. Indecision gives others the space to lead. Boldness takes that space back. The world leans toward confidence. Even when it's wrong, it moves people. It bends perception. It disguises flaws as strength and mistakes as strategy. So when the moment comes, move. Declare. Act as if your path was always meant to be followed. Let your energy overwhelm resistance. Let your certainty silence questions. This is not about arrogance. It's about momentum. Because boldness builds belief in others and in yourself. And once the world believes in your movement, they stop looking for reasons to resist it. Don't wait for perfect. Don't wait for permission. Just move, like you were born to lead. Power doesn't belong to those who act fast. It belongs to those who see far. To those who move each piece with the final move already in mind. Most people chase the next step, the short win, the applause, the flash. But the wise build towards something no one else sees. They start with the end, then trace their way backward. Quietly, patiently. Without an end in sight, you drift. You react. You fall into traps you didn't even know existed. But when you plan to the finish, you avoid the noise. You rise above chaos with calm, thinking endings. What will this action bring? What will this alliance cost? What doors will this decision open? And which ones will it quietly close? See the battlefield before the war begins. And when others are still improvising, you'll already be 3 steps past their final move. True power doesn't sweat. It doesn't stumble. It arrives, as if it was always meant to be there. Let others see the result, not the labor. Reveal the victory, not the grind. Because effort is human, but what people admire is the illusion of ease. Hide your tools, bury the struggle, make it look like instinct, like breath, like magic unfolding in silence. Why? Because the more natural you appear, the more others believe you were born for greatness. And belief is a magnet. People follow what feels beyond reach. Let your calm disturb their doubts. Let your grace unsettle their logic. You don't need to show the work. Only the brilliance it leaves behind will make it look easy, and they'll never stop wondering how you do it. Power isn't always about forcing a choice. Sometimes it's about designing the illusion of freedom. You don't need to trap people. You just need to guide them toward the trap they choose themselves. Give them options, not to liberate them, but to limit them. Choices that feel free, but lead only where you want them to go. When people believe they're deciding, they stop resisting. They invest in the outcome. They defend the direction, even if it was never truly theirs. Control the frame. Set the terms. Shape the landscape. until every road bends back to your purpose. Because the one who writes the rules never has to break them. You don't need to push, just arrange. Step back and let them walk exactly where you want them. Reality is heavy, cold, ordinary, but fantasy. Fantasy floats. It frees. And in that freedom, people let go of reason and follow. Give them what they want to believe, not what is. Offer escape. Offer meaning. A story larger than their life. A promise just beyond their reach. Don't speak in facts. Speak in visions, in symbols, in dreams they never dare admit aloud. Make their desire your language, and they will listen with devotion. Most leaders explain, but those who rule hearts enchant. They wrap their message in magic, not clarity. The more impossible it feels, the more people cling to it. So paint the sky, even if your feet never leave the ground, because those who master fantasy never run out of followers, only mirrors. Everyone has a pressure point, a fear, a need, a secret knot beneath the surface. Find it, and you don't need to push hard. A whisper becomes enough. Power isn't brute force, it's precision. It's knowing where to touch, and when. So watch them. What excites them? What makes them flinch? What do they repeat, even when no one's asking? Some are ruled by guilt, others by pride. Some chase approval, while others run from the shadows of their past. You don't need to expose it. You just need to know it's there. Ask, but ask sideways. Listen to what they avoid, because what they hide is what controls them. Once you hold that thread, you hold the person. Not with chains, but with silence they fear you'll break. Respect begins from within. If you walk like you belong at the bottom, the world will keep you there. But walk like you carry your own crown, and people will begin to adjust their gaze. You don't need a title, you need presence. A calm certainty, refusal to beg for attention, because your worth is non-negotiable. The powerful don't chase validation. They don't shrink to fit the room. They expand it. It's through posture, tone, and the quiet conviction that says, I know who I am. Carry yourself with dignity, even if the world forgets your name. Speak as if you expect to be heard, not because you shout, but because silence follows your words. People respond to symbols, and you are one. So become one worth bowing to. If you act like a king, you won't need to demand the throne. The throne will begin to form around you. Impatience is loud. It rushes, pushes, grasps. But timing, true timing, moves like the tide. Silent, inevitable, unstoppable. Those who rise too soon burn out unseen. Those who wait too long are buried by hesitation. But those who study the rhythm, who feel when to pause, when to strike, when to disappear, they hold the real power. Time is not your enemy. It is your medium. Like a sculptor shapes stone, you shape events by knowing when to act and when to let things unfold. Watch closely. Not everything needs your hand. Some doors open not by force, but by waiting near them until the right moment arrives. Power isn't always fast. Sometimes it's still. Sometimes, the most strategic thing you can do is wait until everyone else moves too soon. Desire is fuel, and attention is oxygen. The more you chase what rejects you, the more power you give it. But when you turn away, calmly, without anger, without need, you take its strength away. Not everything must be fought for. Not everything must be owned. Some battles are traps. Some obsessions are cages disguised as trophies. What you cannot have, let it vanish. Not with frustration, but with indifference. Because silence burns louder than complaint. To disdain is to rise above. It is to send a message without sending a word. That you are complete with or without it. Let others chase shadows. Let them bleed for validation. You walk away, and in doing so you become untouchable. Words reach the mind, but spectacle captures the soul. Yeah, people forget what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. Nothing moves hearts like something they can see, feel, and believe without question. In a world drowning in noise, the dramatic rises like flame in the dark. Create moments, symbols, images that speak louder than speeches. Let your presence become a performance. Not artificial, but unforgettable. rituals, colors, silence broken by gesture. You don't just appear, you arrive. When you leave them wondering if it was real at all. This isn't deception, it's design, because attention is power. And when the eyes are locked on you, the mind becomes open to whatever story you choose to tell. So be bold in your presentation. Let the ordinary fear the extraordinary, because those who master illusion often command reality. Freedom of thought is sacred, but freedom of expression is a dangerous luxury in a world that fears what it doesn't understand. Think deeply, feel fully, question everything, but do it in silence. Because when you wear your difference too boldly, you become a threat. Not because you are wrong, but because you are seen as other. Blend in. Not to betray yourself, but to protect yourself. Let your truth live behind your eyes, not on your sleeve. The wise speak in familiar tones, while carrying unfamiliar thoughts. You don't need to announce your rebellion. You only need to act. When the time is right, the rest of the time, be like water. Clear, calm, and possible to hold. What makes you powerful is not that you think differently, but that no one sees it coming until it's already done. Calm minds are clear. They think, they measure, they see through illusion. But disturb that calm and clarity disappears. In anger, people reveal themselves. They speak too fast. They expose too much. They act on impulse, not strategy. And that is when they can be caught. Stir the waters. Not with rage, but with precision. Poke gently, insinuate, challenge their pride, their fear, their vanity. Watch the ripples break their reflection. Once they react, you no longer have to guess who they are. They'll show you. In their fury, you'll find their weakness, and in their confusion, you'll find your opening. The key is detachment. While they burn, you stay cold. While they drown in emotion, you cast your net. Calm, steady, invisible, let others lose control. You just wait. Because still waters run deep. But agitated ones reveal everything. What comes free often costs the most. Because behind every handout, there's a hidden thread, a favor, an expectation, a subtle claim on your freedom. Power pays its own way. It doesn't beg, doesn't borrow without cost. To accept something for nothing is to place yourself below the giver, and over time that imbalance grows. Value yourself enough to earn what you take. When you pay, you stay clean. You owe nothing. You move freely. The world respects those who build, who invest, who say, I can get it myself. Let others chase the free meal. You build the table, because the moment you stop needing what's given, you start choosing what's yours. To follow a legend is to walk through their shadow. Their name lingers. Their story overshadows your own. And no matter how far you go, you're measured against a ghost. Power isn't inherited, it's invented. You don't rise by imitating, you rise by creating, by stepping away from their path and cutting one that's fully your own. Let history rest, let their legacy stand where it stands. But you build something different, unfamiliar, unpredictable. You make them look forward, not backward. Because when you try to replicate greatness, you become a reflection, and reflections fade. But when you reimagine the frame, you redefine what greatness looks like. Don't wear borrowed shoes. Craft your own footprints, because power doesn't echo, it speaks with its own voice. Disorder rarely begins in the crowd. It starts with one voice, a whisper that grows, a presence that influences quietly, until the group moves as one. In every circle there's a shepherd. It's not always the loudest, not always the leader by title. It's the one they watch, the one they mirror. Ignore that figure, and you fight shadows. Address the noise, but miss the source. But if you strike the center decisively, strategically, the rest falls apart. Don't waste energy on followers. Remove the pulse. Dismantle the influence. The silence that follows will do more than confrontation ever could. Power isn't about suppressing the crowd. It's about understanding who moves it. And once you see who commands the current, you don't need to fight the waves. You're just still the tide at its root. Force wins the moment, but hearts and minds win the war. Power that is feared can be broken. But power that is loved, respected, trusted, it becomes self-sustaining. It doesn't need to shout. It's carried willingly by those who believe in it. Influence is not just control. It's emotion. It's empathy, timing, intuition. It's understanding what moves people, then offering it before they ask. Make others feel seen. Make them feel valued. Appeal to their hopes, not their fears. Because once the heart is open, the mind will follow. When people follow you because they want to, not because they have to, you've built something real, something no threat can shake. So don't dominate, resonate, and you'll never walk alone in any room again. People fear what they don't understand, but they also feel unsettled. When they see too much of themselves, the mirror doesn't attack. It reflects, silently, precisely, and in that reflection, you expose their nature, their flaws, their habits, their aggression. Turn back on them. When someone threatens, don't react with force. React with imitation. Mirror their tone, their posture, their logic, and suddenly, they're looking at themselves, stripped of power. It confuses, it provokes, because the mirror robs them of control. They can't fight what looks like them. They can't win against their own echo. But the mirror isn't just for defense. It's a weapon, one that turns their energy inward until they unravel on their own. Stay calm. Stay still. Hold up the reflection and let them fall into it. Change is necessary, but it terrifies people, not because they don't want better, but because the familiar, even if broken, feels safe. If you push too hard, you'll awaken resistance. Even those who suffer will cling to what they know if the new feels too sudden. The key is rhythm. It's introduce change slowly, wrapped in symbols they already trust. Speak their language. Use their values. Even as you guide them somewhere new, the people feel in control, even as you steer the wheel. Let them believe it was their idea, even when it came from your design. Revolution is fire, but evolution, that's the real art. Quiet, steady, irreversible. So preach progress, but honor tradition. Because lasting power doesn't shock, it reshapes, gently, until the old becomes the new without a fight. Perfection provokes envy, and envy is silent until it strikes. The more flawless you seem, the more others begin to resent, not because you've wronged them, but because your shine reminds them of their shadows. Power isn't just in being great, it's in knowing when to hold back. Show your skill, but leave a crack. Reveal your strength, but never all of it. Make space for others to feel important. Let them win something small. Let them believe you struggle too. Not because you're weak, but because invisibility is sometimes the strongest armor. Those who rise too high, too clean, too untouched, invite storms. So protect your throne, not with glory, but with grace. Because perfection may impress, but imperfection, it survives. Victory is intoxicating. It blinds. It whispers, just a little more. But power that doesn't know its limits inevitably turns on itself. The moment you've won, you stand on a fragile edge. One step too far, and the fall begins. Mastery isn't just about conquest. It's about restraint. The ability to feel the high and still walk away with clarity. When the crowd is cheering, when your rivals are silenced, that's when you must pause. Resist the urge to dominate further, because what follows excess is always decline. Let others crave more. You'll leave on your own terms, complete the circle, seal the win, and step away before the applause fades. Power is an endless motion. It's knowing when to stop and leave behind a silence that echoes forever. Rigidity breaks, identity traps. The moment you become something fixed, you become predictable, and the predictable can be controlled. Power lives in movement, in the shifting, the unseen, the undefinable. When you let go of shape, you cannot be cornered, cannot be struck, because there is no solid surface to strike. Let others cling to their titles, their routines, their roles. You be water, be air, adapt, dissolve, reappear. In a world obsessed with identity, learn the beauty of being unknowable. When they think they've found you, change. When they expect your next move, disappear. This isn't emptiness, it's freedom. It's a kind of freedom that only those detached from ego can ever truly taste. Power is not in having one form, it's in being able to become anything. And now, You know the 48 laws of power, not to worship them, but to see the game for what it is. So you can play it, or walk away from it, with your eyes wide open. You've now seen the architecture of power, not just as it's written, but as it's played. In silence, in influence, in every choice not spoken aloud, these laws are not commandments. They are mirrors, to reflect the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. Power does not belong only to tyrants and kings. It lives in how we set boundaries, how we speak without speaking, how we shape the air around us. So take what resonates, discard what poisons. Use what sharpens your awareness, not just to rise, but to move through the world with intention. And if this kind of clarity speaks to you, you'll know where to return. Not because you were asked, but because something in you knows the game never really ends.